Alright, once you've finished blocking out your medium forms and you've gotten the overall shape of your rock or your arch figured out, now it's time to move on to smaller forms. Now, I'm refraining from using the word details here because we're going to go through a detail pass a bit later. This is, again, we're just blocking out smaller forms now, so we're working our way down. We made the big shape, and then we made a bunch of medium shapes, and now it's time to work on some smaller shapes. Now, with the voxel resolution that I've been using, it's resulted with me having about 853,000 triangles. And if we look real close, if I were to go with my build brush and start to build, it's going to be difficult for me to create nice looking forms that are smaller than the ones I've already got. We just really don't have the polygonal density for those to look very nice. So for this step, we're going to increase the resolution. Now there are two ways to do this. If we scroll all the way down through our voxel tools, we'll find two commands. We have res plus and we have resample. Now res plus will subdivide the voxels that your model is based on. So if I click that, give it a few seconds, now you see we have almost 3.4 million triangles, and in our vox tree we have a little 2x next to arch 2. And now we have significantly more polygons to work with. Now I don't quite want that many. I'd rather have it be a solid 3 million, and the reason is because there's another operation we're going to do a bit later that's going to be very difficult to work with if we have an outrageous number of polygons. So there's another way. So if I undo that, we're back at 853,000. If I go to resample, what I can do is I can change the number of polygons I want this model to have. So I could give it, say, exactly 3 million. And you see that's a modulation factor of about 1.8. So hit OK. There we go, we got 2.9 million now, which for me is going to work out a little bit better. It's not that the 3.5 million wouldn't have worked, it's just that it's a little bit excessive for what we're going to be doing with the model. So, now let's start talking about what kind of small forms we can add to this object. So if I look at our reference image, then the kind of small forms I'm talking about are surfaces kind of like this. These smaller cuts and little gashes like that. Maybe even a little bit of detail along those lines. And overall sort of filling in these larger surfaces that we've built up. So if I move over, say, here, there's a couple different ways we can do this. I can go back in with my plane tool, and I'm going to shrink it down. Now, unfortunately, since right-clicking repositions this plane, you have to actually go up to the radius here and decrease that. But I can start to cut a little like that. Something along those lines. And maybe I can come in right about here, kind of cut that away. Maybe up in here, sort of cut into that, and then maybe cut another one. Kind of going that way. And this will just help it look a little bit more, well, more rock-like, to put it plainly. If we start adding in all these small cuts. Now, when you're doing this, you need to be careful to make sure they're not too uniformly spread out. It's a very difficult tendency to overcome sometimes. So you want to put some closer together than others. And sometimes you want these cracks to kind of follow existing contours. So like here I might have this kind of follow along right there, although that might cut a little too deep. So that's one type of smaller detail you can add. If I look back at the reference, there are other things we can do as well. So like if you look here, you see we've got sort of a crack going here, and then we've got another one running parallel to it, and we've just got this smaller form in between. So we might go to the underside right here, and we go in with our build brush, and we just start to add in sort of that kind of definition. So I come in here, and I want that crack to be running right there. Now, I go with one of my sharper alphas and hold down Control and just help to define that a little bit. And then come in with my scrape tool, shrink it down a little bit, kind of scrape that away, kind of scrape all that, and then we've got two distinct forms right there. Kind of merge those together. We can start to add those kinds of smaller forms all over this model, really. We just look at some of our reference. Then we can see like maybe up on this top rock right here, we can maybe have a smaller rock protrusion coming out right around there. So once we've gotten that pretty well defined, now I can come in, we can just sort of scrape it away. Maybe come with our plane tool and start, come on, I need to shrink it down a bit. Too small. There we go, something like that. Kind of cut to make those edges pretty sharp. And come in, smooth that out. Let's see, we can start to tackle something like this. So that might be down here. We come with our build tool. Instead of adding a form, we can just start to take it away instead. So we can make a little bit of a pit right here. Then kind of maybe put another one right next to it. And then scrape our way around here too. And then just come with our scrape tool and start to flatten a bit of that out. But those are the kind of operations you're going to want to start doing to your overall model. I'm going to come into these cuts I made a little earlier ago and just smooth those out. I don't want them to look too faceted. Might come in up here and just sort of cut a little bit away. Just start to fill in some of these larger flat spaces, like right here especially. You could really come in with a plane tool and make it a bit bigger. And just kind of add some layering to it almost. With my build tool, smooth that out, and then come with my scrape and kind of get rid of this angle that we have. Maybe even scrape away some of the layering itself, so it kind of blends together into one rock. So those are the kind of forms that you want to be working on. So now you just have to do that to the entire model to your satisfaction, and in the next video I will tell you how to start to create the fine surface detail using the surface sculpting mode and procedural noise.